Hello students, today we're going to be talking about how to read a height bar, how to read a scale, and also how to read a thermometer. We're going to be doing a quick review on how to read all three of these items. So we already talked about reading a regular ruler. On a regular ruler, the smallest mark on a regular ruler is a 16th. But when we use our height scales, our height bars, we're going to be dealing with different measurements, slightly different measurements. If here's 7 inches and here's 8 inches, here's 4 inches and here's 5. In between the 4 and the 5, this long mark is still going to be the half. And then the smaller two marks are still going to be the 1/4 and the 3/4. And then these little teeny tiny marks here on this scale are going to be the 1/8 marks. There is no 1/16 mark. So this arrow would be pointing to 4 and 1/4. And this would be in inches. So then this one is pointing to a smaller mark. So on this scale, those are the 1/8. And I read it just like I did a ruler. This would be 1/8. This would be 3/8. Remember, these go by odd numbers. This would be 5/8. So our reading here for example B would be 7 and 5/8 of an inch. Okay. So when we start to talk about height bars, though, height bars are interesting because they have what's called a break here in the middle. This part, the lower part, is read in an upward direction. So this would be 37 inches, this would be 37 1/4, 37 1/2, 37 3/4, and then 38. See this example here. The above the break, though, is read in a downward reading or downward direction. That this would be 74, this would be 74 1/4, this would be 74 1/2. And same example, this one would be 73, 73 1/4, 73 1/2, 73 3/4. So if we're reading above the break, if the person is more than 50 inches tall, then we're reading above the break. If they're less than 50 inches tall, then we'll be reading below the break, and the direction in which we read will change. So example A is down here below the break, so we're reading in an upward direction. So that means that this mark right here is 73. This would be 73 1/4. This one would be 73 1/2. So our example A would be 73 1/2 inches. Our example B is pointing above the break. So the way that you read above the break, you read right here at the break, really. And at the break, you read downward. So this is 74. This would be 74 1/4. This would be 74 1/2. And then it's not on the half, it's the next thing down. So that's going to be reading at 74 3/4. I want you to take a minute and take a look at these problems. Go ahead and pause your video so you can look at those 1, 2, and 3. And also, again, now pause and see if you can read 4, 5, and 6. Okay, moving on to our next thing is looking at scales. So scales read your weight measurement, and a scale usually has a top bar and a bottom bar. So you'll have to be able to read this top bar. That's what I'm looking at right now. And so that top bar would read as, do you see this is 10? 11 would be right here in the middle. It's not marked. They don't mark every single one. So what it's pointing at here with example A is 11 1/2 pounds. That's how you read the top bar. Now, the bottom bar, there'll be a bottom bar. If you weigh more than 50 pounds, the bottom bar you move over, and then it's pointing to 150. So that means that this person would weigh 161 pounds and a half. You would add those two measurements together. You read the top bar and the bottom bar and add them together. So take a look at these examples. I want you to pause your video and see if you can read those measurements. Remember to add the top bar and the bottom bar together. Then also do the same thing here. Pause your video and try to read those measurements there. Remember to adding the top bar and the bottom bar together when you talk about weight. All right. Moving on, we're going to talk about thermometers. We have a Fahrenheit thermometer, which is used here in the United States, and there's also a Celsius thermometer. But a Fahrenheit thermometer, if you look at the measurements here, this is 94 degrees Fahrenheit. And then the next thing that's marked is 96. 95 is right here in the middle. They don't mark every single mark. They're only marking the even ones. So if this is 96, this means that this mark in the middle would be 97. And then in between, from 97, let's say, to 98, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections altogether. So that means that each little tick mark would be worth 0.2 of a degree. So example number 1 here, we're going to read this as 97, and then this would be 0.2, 0.4, 0.6, 0.8. Our example number 1 would be 97.8 degrees Fahrenheit. Our example number 2, so again, here's 100. This is 102. So that means in between here is 103. And we know that on a Fahrenheit thermometer, each tick mark is worth 0.2. So we go 0.2, 0.4, 0.6. Our reading here would be 101.3. I believe I wrote the wrong thing there. I probably said the wrong thing. But in between 100 and 102 is 101. Go ahead and pause your video again, and I want you to see if you can locate those measurements on this Fahrenheit thermometer. Okay, looking at the Celsius thermometer, the Celsius thermometer has markings 37 and 39. 38 would be in the middle here. And same thing, this would be 40 in the middle. This one would be 36 here in the middle. But I want you to see the difference that in between 37 and 38, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 spaces. Instead of on our Fahrenheit scale, we had a different number of tick marks, right? So if there's 10 tick marks here, that means that each tick mark is worth 0.1. So our first example is very easy. It's just pointing to the 37. So our first example is 37 degrees Celsius. Our next example here is pointing to this mark. So that means we go back to the 38, and each one is worth 0.1, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8. So it would be 38.8 degrees Celsius. So on a Fahrenheit scale, each tick mark is worth 0.2. On a Celsius scale, each tick mark is worth 0.1. So again, I want you to pause your video, take a look at these 3 measurements on the Celsius scale, and see if you can identify where those are on the thermometer. All right. I want to thank you for listening today, and I hope this helps you in solidifying how to read a height bar, a scale, and a thermometer if you're reading Celsius or Fahrenheit. Please go answer the questions on the Google quiz. There are 3 questions. If you have any questions, you can always contact me at cjones@ictc.edu. All right, you guys have a great day. Hope to see you soon. Bye.